P. Diddy, Brother Love, Puff Daddy, Puffy, Sean Combs, whatever you choose to call it. He is now arrested and the documents have been unsealed. CNN has a report from a former prosecutor who says this is the amount of time he's facing. Here it is.
A federal indictment. It's been filed in the Southern District of New York, which covers Manhattan and the Bronx and some of the northern counties. So this will be a federal prosecution. Generally, federal prosecutions carry higher penalties, higher potential sentences than state prosecutions. And as I'll get to in a moment, that is certainly the case here. So this is a 3-count indictment against Sean Combs. Now, count 1 charges racketeering conspiracy. And the indictment alleges that Sean Combs, along with others who are not charged, but others, ran an enterprise, an operation, essentially a business that engaged in a series of crimes. Here, those crimes relate to sex trafficking. In fact, the indictment names the racketeering enterprise the Combs Enterprise. That's the title that they gave the enterprise. So that's count 1. Now, count 2 charges sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, meaning that Sean Combs participated in transporting women across state lines for illegal sexual purposes by force or by threats or by intimidation. That is an extraordinarily serious charge. If the prosecution can prove that, the minimum sentence there, if they convict Sean Combs on that, is 15 years and the maximum is life. 15-year minimum sentence. And then count 3 charges transportation of another individual to engage in prostitution. It's sort of a lesser included of count 2. So we've got a 3-count indictment, racketeering, sex trafficking by force, and then interstate transportation for the purpose of prostitution. It's a very serious indictment. These charges are extremely serious. The Southern District of New York does cases like this. They do cases against powerful, famous individuals all the time. And soon Sean Combs will be in court and he will certainly plead not guilty to this. And then we'll be underway with the proceedings.
Everybody saw it coming. There's a lot of information here. I'm going to bring you the updated format. With millions watching, and many people benefiting from this program called Indisputable, we just need 1% of the viewers to become a paid member so we can continue to bring this content to you. Now back to the show. The updated format with more details from the U.S. Attorney's Office. Sean Diddy Combs could face more than 20 years behind bars if found guilty on charges related to a 3-count indictment unsealed early this morning. Arrested on Monday night by federal authorities at his New York City hotel. The rapper is now formally charged with racketeering, sex trafficking, and transportation to engage in prostitution, going back almost 2 decades. The charges carry sentences that vary from 15 years to life for the 54-year-old Combs. Now, there's something to look for. You may see amended indictments here. You may see some updates to the indictment, and you may see additional non-indicted or unindicted co-conspirators. Those individuals are typically the ones that have turned state evidence against Mr. Combs. There's more. Quote, for decades, Sean Combs, a.k.a. Puff Daddy, a.k.a. P. Diddy, a.k.a. Diddy, a.k.a. PD, a.k.a. Love, the defendant, according to the allegation, abused, threatened, and coerced women and others around him to fulfill his sexual desires, protect his reputation, and conceal his conduct, declares the just unsealed indictment against the much accused producer and performer. To do so, Combs relied on the employees, resources, and influence of the multifaceted business empire that he led and controlled, creating a criminal enterprise whose members and associates engaged in and attempted to engage in, among other crimes, sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping, arson, bribery, and obstruction of justice. The filing comes from the U.S. Attorney Damian Williams' office adds. Now, here's what's ironic about the indictment. And at some point, I'm sure people much smarter than me in the legal profession will talk about it. You don't see the conspiracy charges that you would typically see in something like this, because obviously, to do all of this, it requires the meeting of the minds of other people. And so you have all of these conspiracy 1, conspiracy 2, conspiracy 3, conspiracy 4. You have those when the people you conspired with aren't willing to cooperate. However, if they are willing to cooperate, they are no longer charged in the conspiracy mapping of the indictment. Just something to look for as this case proceeds. In language very similar to the swath of sexual assault and other allegations or lawsuits against Combs in the past several months, the indictment alleges that Combs used drugs, violence, and career advancement in the music industry to induce and control his victims, entourage, and others. The rapper also seemingly used shame and blackmail to keep people from speaking out. Quote, the sensitive, embarrassing, and incriminating recordings that he made during freak-offs as collateral to ensure the continued obedience and silence of the victims. This is part of the unsealed indictment. Now, you don't have to be an internet sleuth to find YouTube videos about P. Diddy allegedly recording individuals, sometimes secretly, in these very intimate encounters. Some of these encounters were of same-sex relationships and others were not. Many of them, according to those same hosts, many of them were not aware that they were being recorded. And when it came time for exposure or an opportunity for Diddy to pay, he did not want to, or if he felt he needed to use it as leverage in order to get a gain out of the individual, he utilized the tapes as the manipulation to do so, according to the allegations that have been presented by many who worked with Combs over the years. Combs is currently awaiting arraignment. This is in a Manhattan courtroom. The Love performer is expected to enter a plea of not guilty, which is done, according to his lawyer. Quote, he's going to fight this with all of his energy and all of his might and the full confidence of his lawyers. That's what his attorney said outside of the federal building this morning. In a detention letter submitted to the court this morning, prosecutors are seeking to keep Combs in custody during the pretrial process. U.S. Attorney the Southern District of New York, Damian Williams, confirmed that this morning. So the defendant's long history, this is the quote, the defendant's long history of violent conduct makes clear that even the most stringent bail conditions will not suffice to ensure the safety of the community. The detention letter to Magistrate Judge Robin F. Ternofsky says, quote, the defendant poses an ongoing and significant danger to the community, has repeatedly engaged in obstructive conduct, and presents a serious risk of flight. The 16-page correspondence goes on to say, quote, the government respectfully submits that the defendant cannot meet his burden of overcoming the statutory presumption in favor of detention. There are no conditions of bail that would assure the appearance and compliance of the defendant or the safety of others. Accordingly, any application for bail should be denied. Part of the effort to keep Combs off the street is rooted where the Fed's probe may go next, 5A through B. Quote, a year ago, Sean Combs stood in Times Square and was handed a key to New York City, exclaims Williams in a brief press conference Tuesday after the sex trafficking indictment was unsealed. Quote, today, he's being indicted and will face justice in the Southern District of New York. We are not done. This investigation is ongoing. And I encourage anyone with information about this case to come forward and do it quickly. End quote. Now, the feds already have multiple New York officials under investigation for unrelated crimes, unrelated allegations. Combs, being in Manhattan when this went down, talking about the arrest, the attorney made sure he went out the way to say, hey, listen, my client was near this Manhattan grand jury so that he could continue cooperating with federal authorities, so that he could continue to make himself available in a cooperative manner. This was really about him being able to post bail. This was about him saying, listen, I'm not running. I'm not trying to flee. I'm here to face the allegations. The reason he moved closer to this grand jury was to ensure the attorney had a leg to stand on when the attorney said, give my client bail. There's more. As well as facing a federal, in a federal prison, self-proclaimed billionaire, facing time in federal prison, self-proclaimed billionaire Combs could be looking at a serious financial hit. So the government intends to seize, this is the quote, any and all property, real and personal, an unspecified sum of money from the alleged crimes the indictment states. According to the indictment, the racketeering charges cover crimes that go back as far as 2008. The sex trafficking and transportation to engage in prostitution claims start with acts committed first in 2009. Now, the irony of this, if Combs would have waited, let's say the traditional amount of time after he was first filed, after the first suit was filed against him as relates to Cassie, he finished that in one day, it was finalized in 24 hours. If he would have waited traditional time, he would probably be broke by the time she could collect. And so the timing is interesting here because that suit was handled in one day, assuming he believed he could make this go away. I believe the investigation likely started prior to the actual suit filing. That is my assumption at this moment. After that, what I'm told by law enforcement is that, quote, months and months of investigation, according to coordinating agencies, Combs' arrest on September 16th is directly related to the raids that took place earlier this year at the rapper's Los Angeles and Miami homes. In that vein, the indictment bluntly states that during the March raids of Combs' Florida and California residences in March, officers found a number of firearms and seized various freak-off supplies, including narcotics, more than 1,000 bottles of baby oil and lubricant. Now, when you see the things that they found and you look at the charging docket, you will say, wait a minute, they missed some charges here. Well, that's intentional. Once again, remember, there are individuals who are probably co-conspirators, in fact, that will not be charged as co-conspirators during the case. All right, so first accused in November by singer and former girlfriend, Cassie Ventura, sexual assault. And we all saw the physical assault on camera. Combs has been alleged to be a perpetrator of sexual assault and other misconduct against multiple women and men. For months now, he has been the subject of an ongoing federal investigation, criminal investigation in New York, and it could stretch even longer. While Combs has denied all accusations, he did settle with Cassie within 24 hours of the filing of her suit. Sources told Deadline at the time that Combs paid Ventura around $30 million. Not that the matter went away, as Combs likely hoped. The performer did admit to the severity of his abuse in his relationship with his ex, but that was only after security footage emerged publicly. That happened in May. He brutalized her, according to that tape, in LA in 2016. It was a hotel room, in a hotel hallway, to be specific. At the time, it also was revealed that Combs bought the footage of the hotel for $50,000 the day after the incident. Once again, you could easily make a case to charge the hotel staff member or management that did that as a co-conspirator to cover up a crime. They are not charged. Why? Because likely they are cooperating. Ventura's lawyer slammed his apology as disingenuous. Since Ventura's legal action, the dam has burst on Combs, with even a producer on his most recent album claiming sexual abuse and a $30 million lawsuit. As recently as last week, Don Richard, one of the singers from ABC MTV series Making the Band, we reported on this. Danity Kane filed a lawsuit claiming abuse of sexual assault by Combs, filed Tuesday in New York federal court. The singer alleged a hip-hop mogul sexually assaulted her, deprived her of food and sleep, and refused to pay her fairly for years. That is a claim that has been continual with Mr. Combs. As has been cited in almost every one of the cases against Combs, Richard alleges that the mogul threatened to destroy her career if she did not comply with his demands and his desires. You talk to anyone about this, they'll say, well, we heard, there were rumors. We knew this, we knew that, we assumed this, we assumed that. Understand this, while P. Diddy is taking the hit as he should, in my humble opinion, and the things that you read, if true, are grotesque. Taking away another person's right to choose what they want to do with their own body, one of the worst things you can do under this sun. But he was protected by an industry. He was protected by an industry. So while P. Diddy is the domino they are after, I do hope the federal government is willing to go down the rabbit hole that this leads. This leads to a lot of other executives who have created an industry and a culture that has decided to protect individuals that will violate the sanctity of the human body and a person's autonomy. All right. Yas, thoughts here?
Yeah, you are absolutely right. I knew as soon as that Cassie video came out that this was all just a matter of time. This goes so deep. We really are in a revelatory time in this country.
Yeah.
Not only are our politics becoming more scrutinized and more transparent in a way that the people in power really are not happy about, but our media and our relationship to that media is also transforming. Celebrity culture and the people who participate in it, it's all beginning to feel very childish and sycophantic and embarrassing, cringe even, if you will, not just on a personal level, but on a national level. Our idols are falling, right? This is the Puff Daddy that I grew up listening to in the 90s in Bridgeport, Connecticut. I have no idea if Gen Z understands how big of a deal this guy was back in the day, but all of that success and public relevance doesn't really excuse people from years, decades even, of horrendous behavior.
Yeah.
People are now speaking out in ways that they really haven't before. NDAs are seen to be unethical now, whereas before they were just kind of the way things are and the way things go. The people who were perhaps scared to speak up previously, like Kathy, for example, they're finally being protected from whatever consequences they were once afraid of. And hopefully people will be better off for it in the future. Now going forward, I think we can expect to see plenty more indictments coming for people associated with Combs. We can expect to hear more allegations against him, probably from people we're familiar with. And unfortunately, I think we can expect to see more of our cultural idols falling. And if you've been following this story for a while, you probably have an idea of who those associated or victimized idols might be, but I don't want to speculate. We'll have to keep an eye on this story, but I do think this is just the beginning.
Yeah, according to the allegations, there are many victims in his path. All right, we'll bring you updates as they come.